Hello everyone, Kent.Bressler here. I want to welcome you to Kent's Kidney Stories. During our time together over these podcasts, I'd like to discuss kidney disease. I'd like to tell you about my journey as a transplant patient, but also talk about dialysis, kidney donation, and just about anything else that might be of interest. Kent's Kidney Stories, podcast endorsed and sponsored by kidneysolutions.org. Hello everyone, this is Kent.Bressler, and we're going to do some podcasting from a different way this go around. This part of our program, this is going to be a program that's sponsored by Kidney Solutions and co-sponsored by AAKP. They have come up with a great idea that we want to celebrate anniversaries. Anniversaries are great, whether it be a year anniversary or a 50-year anniversary. It's a personal thing, and most of all, it needs to be shared because it gives people hope. It's not a matter about whether or not you've made it out for a long period of time, or that you have had struggles. That isn't the point. The point is that timing of your anniversary, it's important to you and to your donor. All right. And so James Myers and I started it out. So today, after I say a little prayer, I'm going to introduce one of my really good friends. Let me pray with you. Dearest Lord, thank you so much just for the opportunity to work with such great people and interview them and get their sides of their tremendous story. We know that your love for us is vast, and it's always helping. Make sure that everything goes well. We'll ask for your blessings. In your name we pray, amen. Okay, here we go. I have been waiting for this for a couple weeks. My guest today on this podcast is Payal Shah. She's been on before, and she is a PharmD. That's a pharmacist with a doctorate, and she's been very gracious. I've been a very close friend of hers, and she's gonna talk about her anniversary, which I think is very interesting. And so, Payal, welcome and take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Kent. I always enjoy coming on the podcast, and I love everything that you're doing, celebrating anniversaries, and because you're right, it's every milestone is important. And so thank you to you, Kidney Solutions and AAKP, to get everyone's stories out there and so that we can all celebrate together. That's great. Yeah, I'm very excited. On May 22nd, I will be celebrating my 22nd year post-transplant with my organ. So I am over the moon excited and grateful and blessed and thankful, and that's really, I think all of you can appreciate that there's really no words to say just how blessed we are.
Yep.
And every day is a blessed counting. And then every year on top of that is a blessed counting. So certainly, usually what we do on May 22nd or around that day, I usually have a celebration of life gathering. So I'll invite family if they're available to come, friends, and either we'll get together at the house or we'll go to a restaurant and just, be together and celebrate life and just enjoy each other's company for a few hours, enjoy the day. Obviously this year, due to some of the restrictions of COVID, we won't be doing that, but certainly I know that I have a lot of well-wishers, you included, that are on my side here. And so it'll be a lot of FaceTiming and Zooming with family and friends this year. So
you're right. I don't know how you explain your anniversary. I really don't. It makes me, yeah, I tear up. I get teared up thinking about it, and it's hard for me to talk about it, but it's a joy to talk about it. So tell me, how old were you when you were transplanted?
When I was transplanted, I was just about to turn 16. So my transplant was, of course, on May 22nd, and my birthday's in June. So I was just few weeks from turning 16 when I got my transplant. It certainly, at that age, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of why me, a lot of just not understanding what was going on. But all I knew and all I remember was the journey, that wait time from when we found my donor. He was a living unrelated donor. So from the time that donor came about, stepped forward and said, I'm interested, to the time that all the testing took place, to the time that we were actually able to do the surgery, I just remember that anticipation and that want to making it happen. And that, I'm just so anxious to get on with my life. But what if something goes wrong? Or just so many different emotions at that age. And a lot of it is just, you don't realize at that time what a big what a big part of your life this ends up being, and
How big a deal it is.
yeah, you don't realize it at that
Exactly.
time. And
Yeah.
a lot of that understanding just comes with age, with experience. And so, and not to mention just the family emotions that go on. But yes, so but nonetheless, there was a lot of excitement because I knew, and I had a great medical team behind me, and they were so sure once all the testing came through and it was like a positive match, and everyone was like, you have so many things going for you that the longevity of this kidney is working in your favor. As long as you do the right things, and these are the right steps you need to take: medication, diet, exercise, as long as you take all of those into play here and do the things that are in your control, this kidney is going to last you forever. And here I am,
Right.
almost 22 years out. So.
Yes. Yeah. And then that's the most important part, is that when you're talking about a young person, and we have, maybe there are some young listeners, or when they hear about this, they will listen to it. It's very important that there's a major change in your life at that point in time, and you don't get it. You really don't. It's just kind of like having your appendix out. You got to do it, but right. So
Absolutely. It almost was, you certainly don't realize how precious your health is at such a young age. You do have a level of invincibility even when you're on dialysis, or when you're, when you have this, well, everything will be fine. Everything, you don't necessarily understand the gravity of it. I don't think I understood the gravity of it, I'll say, at that age. And it's only after being exposed so many years later to other patients, other stories, being in the field that I am, and understanding a clinician's point of view, and understanding the science and the literature, do you really realize, how vulnerable you really are at that point in your life.
Yeah, yeah. What's interesting about you is that you've kind of like, you've educated yourself up. You've got a good family life. You've taken care of yourself. And I think if I say the word moderation, you would understand what I mean. Everything in your life you've done with moderation, right? Pretty much.
Absolutely.
You've not really eliminated anything out of your life, but everything that you've done has been done in moderation, and that's probably helped in your longevity of your kidney, right?
Absolutely. I will say, as far as moderation goes, I have gone skydiving twice, so I don't know if that's considered moderation. But I think I was testing my world, if you will. I was testing kind of some of this was in my younger days.
I was going to say, how old were you?
I think I was still in college. It was definitely post-transplant. So I was in college, I think, and I went twice. And boy, was it fun. I won't do it now.
I thought
But it was, so I don't know if that's necessarily moderation, but I took it to the extreme those few times, but it was.
In your lifetime, though, you do things in extreme. Now, how long you carry that extremism out is significant. Yes. Because I really believe that had I not made some adjustments early on and done things more moderately, I would have probably smoked or drank or done whatever it was. But till I got that transplant, it became even more important to doing things in moderation. You can't eliminate things from your life because it's not going to make a big difference, except the excesses are what kill you. That's Absolutely. Really what kill you.
Absolutely. And look, we've been blessed with a second chance. So the goal, is to enjoy that second chance. You don't, within moderation, enjoy all the experiences. Yep. It's really what it's about.
So tell me, in your mind, if you wanted to give somebody the one reason that you've done so well, what do you think you can lay it out to? What is that one reason, or is there more than one?
I think it's a myriad. It's a combination of things. But if I had to pick one, and I say this with respect to understanding that there's a lot of biology that takes place when a body accepts a kidney or rejects a kidney. But I will say taking medications, and I say this from a patient standpoint and a pharmacist standpoint, compliantly taking your medications on time, when they are due to take, don't skip doses, don't half your dose without talking to your doctor,
right.
Following the regimen of your medications is really, really important. So, but that being said, like I do believe that there's a combination of things that needs to happen to ensure success of a transplant. But medication compliance is one of the big things.
I think it's one of the sole things. And if you don't do it, you will have trouble, especially for the new transplants, people who are fresh in their transplants. I don't know, what medication are you on? What medication do you take?
Yep. So I'm on Cellcept, which is phenolate. I'm on Rapamune, otherwise known as sirolimus, and I'm on 1 milligram of prednisone.
Okay. So that's a pretty good. I'm on Sandamune. Okay. I've been on Sandamune for my whole life, my whole transplant life. The point I want to make here is there is a regimen for taking these because it peaks and it drops and it peaks and it drops. And if you miss a dose here or there and you say, oh, it doesn't make a difference. It's makes a big difference no matter what immunosuppressive you're on. Right. It's got to be taken diligently, on time, and not missed. If you miss, that's understandable. There's ways you can fix it. But you don't do half a dose, like you said. You stay on that regimen for your whole life.
Right.
Okay.
And there's so many different, if forgetfulness, not being able to remember when to take your medications is something that perhaps patients do struggle with, there's so many ways to, to remember. There's apps, there's pill cases, there's, I know there's a new, I don't use it myself, but I know that there's a service called Pillbox, if I'm not mistaken.
Pillbox.
Which basically already, I believe it's a delivery system. So you your physician would send your prescriptions to Pillbox. But basically what they do is they send you all your medications already prepackaged.
Okay.
And, so the system is such that you'll know whether you've taken your medications for the day or for that time period.
Okay.
So my point being is that there's so many different options out there for a patient to, different methods you can use if that's something that is a struggle for patients.
Well, that's true. You have to be diligent about it. That has to be your top priority.
Yeah.
Because if you don't take it, you're going to lose your kidney. Just have to be honest. If you don't take it consistently, you're going to lose your kidney. And that kidney's yours. And you mentioned that it's a second life. And if you lose that, that's on you. People lose kidneys for a lot of reasons, and a lot of them are not in their control. But medications are in your control.
Right.
So that's
bingo.
That's a good point to bring up.
Knowing that is something. Yeah, knowing that is something you can control. I don't think that there should be any compromise in that. I do. I also understand the long-term side effects of the medications, which can be kind of scary to patients. But again, I think the fact that we are already being followed and monitored closely by practitioners, that we're at a good place where we can catch a lot of these long-term side effects early on, because we are continuously being monitored, that we can nip things, at an early onset before things get to be late stage. So, always being mindful of all of that. It's a lot to take in. Tough pill to swallow, pardon the pun, but it's.
Well, it's going to, what? Everything has side effects. Everything you put in your mouth has a side effect to it. And it's different strokes for different folks. But I can tell you that not taking it is far more dangerous than taking it over the long haul. Because, like you said, there's always an alternative. The docs can always make an adjustment. If you don't go to the doc, if you don't keep your appointments, if you take your medicines and something goes wrong and you catch it, like you say, then you can make an adjustment. And that's what life's all about anyway, is an adjustment. That after 22 years, you've made constant adjustments, right?
Constantly. And it was only after, initially when I got my transplant, I was on tacrolimus, Prograf. And that was just not a good medication for me personally. And I think I was 7 years out by that point, and we made the change to sirolimus. And, it's been, so to your point, you're constantly changing. My prednisone dose, I'm trying to aggressively ask my doctor about prednisone. I know a lot of institutions are going steroid free now post-transplant, and being that I'm 22 years out, it's something that I'm really trying to gather all my research and the literature to present to my nephrologist and say, hey, how necessary is prednisone in my cocktail therapy? So
especially 1 milligram. I'm on 5. I've been on 5 for 30 years. I've been on 5 milligrams for 30 years.
And so the question is, is that more or less than your body makes naturally, right?
That's the point. Stress that point. Why do you have to take the prednisone? What's the theory behind having to take it?
Well, it's just part of the immunosuppressive regimen. And the fear is that the prednisone essentially decreases some of that inflammation that might be, it's called a corticosteroid. So it helps reduce some of that inflammation that might be going on that would lead to rejection of the kidney. Know that your body does make some basal level.
Exactly.
Right? And I'll be honest, I'm not necessarily sure what that number is of how much cortisol the body makes. So the question is, when you're a certain point out of transplant, what your body makes naturally, is that sufficient to sustain the kidney, or is it not that you would need more to supplement? And so that's kind of where my process is right now, is just to get a better understanding, gather some data, and present it to my doctor. And hopefully we can come up with a good decision and say, hey, you're 22 years out. There's no need to rock the boat. It's only 1 milligram. Stick with it.
You know something? That's a very good point, Pi. That's a very good point, because that's exactly what my physician told me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what he told me. If you don't take that prednisone now after this period of time, you could suffer an Addison's crisis. You could trigger an Addison's crisis, and we'll not go into that. It's not good. All right.
Right.
So consequently, I could probably reduce down to 1. But what's the importance here? I don't know if there's a significant importance to me. I'm talking about me now, and you at 1. But somewhere you've got to get that out of your mind, because you're thinking, if I could eliminate that drug, I'm more than happy to do it. I would love to do it. But you're also willing to continue if your physician says, why would you want to rock the boat?
Right.
Right?
Well, yeah. And a lot of it also comes down to, as we were talking about earlier, is the secondary side effects.
Yes.
I will share with you that post-transplant, now I am, it's genetic, but I also, because of the steroids, long-term use, I'm also osteoporotic.
Sure.
So, it's all these things that you kind of try and keep in mind as you make decisions,
right.
Going on. So, can we mitigate osteoporosis maybe by taking the vitamin D and calcium supplements along with continuous steroid use? Or is it something that we can say, hey, we can forego this prednisone and see, does that make a difference?
Sure.
So to your point, there's so many, you have to do your due diligence. You have to be your own advocate and present the case to the physician and talk it through. Certainly don't make any decisions on your own.
That's a great point, because I can remember talking to my physician about getting off the immunosuppressive. You've heard that occasionally somebody will get off of it, but it does not happen very often. Right. And his response to me was, you know what, that's a great thought. And I wish you would keep it independent, because if you want to go off, I won't take you off. You'll have to find somebody else to take you off. That's significant, right? I will not be germane to you having a hidden rejection.
Right.
I'm a physician, and I expect you to take this medicine. If you don't like taking it, you need to find another doctor.
Right.
I mean, that's probably about as blunt as you can be. I'm still with him.
And there's a reason why, right? Why? Absolutely.
That's right. The joy of transplantation, in your mind, what is the joy of having a transplant? How long were you on dialysis? How long were you
I was on dialysis for a year.
For a year?
For a year.
Okay.
I was on hemodialysis for 6 months and peritoneal dialysis for 6 months before I got my transplant. So that being said, I think just freedom, you're not tied to a machine. And now the machines have gotten much smaller, much more compact. There's more ways to get around. For example, wanting to travel, there's more ways to get around it while you're on dialysis, but it's not easy. There's a lot of coordination into it. And so just being able to, the transplant has really allowed me to, I've traveled the world. I've been everywhere from South Africa to Thailand to India and within the States. So, really just being able to see the world. I've been able to go to pharmacy school. I went to the University of Michigan Pharmacy School. It's just offered me so much freedom with this transplant. And really just being able to, I think mentally, it's just been a very, while I know that, yes, it is a medical condition, right? It's a lifelong medical condition. I don't look at it like a medical condition. I look at it as truly second chance at life, and I just need to do what I need to do to take care of it. So very mentally freeing, I would say.
Yeah.
Which has been a blessing.
Oh, yeah. You can see it in your face. I mean, I know people can't see your face, but there's a joy and that smile, and that it gives you a joy to veer. That gives you a point of reference, because I can remember the 2 times that I had dialysis. It made me really sick. I suppose I could have adjusted. My doctor didn't think I could, but I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have lived a life, a real life of freedom. Okay. I know it's not a cure. I get that. And I know as I age, it's going to deteriorate. I get it. So consequently, what I really want to do, what is it in the end stages of my life? I'm 70 years old, and in your case, you're much younger than that. But you do think about that, do you not? So what are your thoughts on aging?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's very, very, how do I put this? It's very dependent on what is going on around me situationally. And I think my husband and I recently had a chat about when we moved to Florida, and especially where we are in Florida, we are not in a major city. And so we are not close to a major institution as far as,
clinical advantage.
Right. And so, God forbid, as I get older, I also understand that I'm on the likelihood of me starting to have wear and tear on my transplanted kidney, the deterioration. I'm very aware that I'm touching on those boundaries now at 22 years out.
Yes, you are. Yeah.
Maybe not. Who knows, right?
Yep.
So one of the things that certainly kind of worries me is, am I surrounding myself with aggressive clinicians that will, as it stands now, I'm just being monitored. Every 6 months I get my lab works done. I'm just I'm starting to show rejection. What are my clinicians going to do aggressively to say, let's get ahead of this if we can?
Yes.
If let's be aggressive and set her up for transplant. And what does that look like? So that's something that kind of weighs on me just geographically where I am. As far as the aging side goes, like I said, I think it comes with if I'm having a midlife crisis.
Yeah, that was a horrible question to ask you. That was a horrible question to ask you. I would retract
because you have to remember the age of the kidney from the donor, right?
Yeah.
When I got transplanted was late 30s, early 40s.
So twice your age.
Almost, yes.
Yes.
So that weighs on in my thinking about what are my next steps? How am I going to, because at some point the control factor goes away and I can only do so much. So what am I going to do to make sure that I'm staying on top of it? So I do think about it. I also know that I try not to worry about what's not in my control at this point.
That's right. That was a horrible question. And all the listeners, shame on me. But I want to tell you something. From where I sit, I'm very aggressive right now in looking at all my options, because I've had mine for 33 years, and I've got a little creatinine creep, I call it, little creatinine creep. Okay. And when you get creatinine creep, it goes up and down, up, down, up, down. You don't know when it's going to go up, stay up.
Correct.
And you know that my kidney, in relationship to yours being, my kidney is 2 years younger than I am, actually.
Okay.
So that's the point that we want to make to people that are listening. Yours came from an older donor at your time, but you weren't going to find a 16-year-old kidney.
Right.
Very seldom does that option. Yes. But like most of the time, you take what you can get and you be blessed with it, right? And you move
Right.
on. So now, as you get a little bit older, people need to realize this. When you get out 10, 15, 20 years, you got to be realistic. What is on the horizon? What is there?
Mhm.
And I know that we've talked about belatacept and we've talked about medications, and you're going to come back in and talk about that later on. But you have to look at options. And being
Mhm.
in a clinical setting where the people are aggressive and they're researching, that's where you want to be.
Absolutely. I don't disagree with that.
Yep, yep. So, well, dadgummit, that was not a good way to end this. I want to tell you that you're exceptional. You're what a kidney transplant patient would like to emulate. One person that has a good attitude, a big smile, I wish people could see it, and a willingness to learn. If you quit learning about kidney issues, if you stop that, if you quit learning, doing the research, do you not agree that you're going to have a lot of trouble? You need to know everything you can about kidney disease and
Right.
transplant. If you're transplanted, you have to. Okay, so that's,
I always say we advocate for each other, but we also advocate for ourselves.
yeah, absolutely. If you don't
Yeah.
advocate, the others or maybe could just be a few people or none at all. But you have to stand up and you have to learn. It's okay to ask questions. You don't get it? Fine. There's plenty of people that can give you the, give you good information. You can't get the good information from the internet and all that kind of stuff. You have to weigh it from a standpoint of a clinician, a physician, and people who've experienced it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, have one more question.
Okay.
Your donor. Donors are special people. My gosh, my brother, I love him like a rock. And I work with people that are getting donations every day, nearly. And they're finding donors and looking for donors. What can you tell us about your donor? Whatever you feel comfortable in talking about.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Phoenix, Arizona, and my parents are still there, been there for years. And so I had my transplant in Arizona. But going back, when I was growing up, my parents were heavily involved in the Hindu community. And so, we would go to temple and at that time, we were very fortunate that Phoenix was growing, as far as the Indian community went, was growing rapidly at that point in time. And from Chicago, a couple who was also involved with the same church, same temple that my parents went to, they moved from Chicago to Phoenix. And just through this relationship of spirituality, my parents and this young couple became very good friends. And this couple at that time, they had two very young daughters, and he had moved to Arizona for work, and he is a cardiologist.
Okay.
So lo and behold, that friendship kind of blossomed over time, and what can I say? I mean, he ended up being my donor.
Really?
Yeah. So fast forward, I would say maybe about 10 years when I started showing symptoms of kidney failure. His wife actually wanted to donate first, and it ended up that she wasn't a match, but my parents were both very adamant that even if she were a match, they didn't want her to donate because, she was the mother of two kids, small kids that needed her. And she was, kind of blossoming into her own career. She was a family physician with the VA. And so my parents were like, let's think about other options. So anyways, long story short, she didn't end up being a match. And so then the husband came forward and said, well, let me give it a shot. And I'll have you keep in mind that he, up until this very day, both the husband and the wife are very spiritual, very religious, very just kind-hearted, selfless people. And so when he went to go get tested and found out that we were not a perfect match, but close to, and he was like, I'm ready to come forward and do this. Even 22 years later, there's no amount of words. There's always this sense of whatever I do, no matter how much, and a lot of, I think my role as an advocate is to give back to him, to say, I'm not taking your kidney, your choice, for granted. And I want to do more by giving back in whatever capacity I can. And so, what's beautiful is I wish I wish I kept in touch with him more. I will say it's something that I do work on. But every time I go back to Arizona and I pay him a visit and I say hi to him, he's always like, I'm so proud of you for doing what you're doing and that you're healthy, taking care of yourself. Yeah. And so I know that he never regrets that decision. And that's really important for me to know, that he has never looked back on that decision. And so that drives me to do more and be more and take care of myself. And those are the sentiments that are really important to me.
See, those donors, you can't explain. I mean, I can't imagine not having two brothers that wanted to do this. But I can't even imagine what it's like for them, because actually when it's over, they're gone. They're on with their lives. They do it, like that. And there's no way, coming from me, there's no way that you can possibly thank them. There's no way. No. I don't care. You can write them letters and you can call them every day. You can become a pest. You can do whatever you want to. But you will never be able to thank them enough for what they did, period.
Absolutely. You can't.
Nothing.
You
right?
can't. And the only thing I can do is just show it by my actions.
Absolutely. You walk the walk.
You walk the walk, and you help support others to walk the walk as well.
That's right. You pull them up. Yep. You don't hold on to your ankles. You get them by the wrists and bring them up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's what I appreciate about you. I saw that in you when we first met, and I just want to tell you that anytime I can get you on to talk, hopefully people will start listening very carefully, because you have such a wealth of knowledge, and I do appreciate it. And I want to just let everybody know out there that transplants are a godsend. They're a gift that just keeps on ticking for you. And it's all in how you take care of yourself. So, Pi, just thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We're going to do this more often, you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I appreciate it. Okay, folks, listen. The old saying is, what goes around comes around. But I want you to keep breathing.